When the holidays start to feel a bit repetitive, reach for a Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry and put your twist on tradition. A bold cranberry and winter spice flavor fusion, Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry is a refreshing way to shake things up this sipping season. And only for a limited time. Sprite. Obey your thirst.
Thursday Night Football is on, and it's only on Prime Video.
Wide open, touchdown!
This week, the Dallas Cowboys and Detroit Lions face off in a high-octane clash.
Look at this, it's on the money.
Coverage begins at 7 p.m. Eastern with football's best party. TNF Tonight, presented by Verizon. Not a Prime member? Not a problem. Simply sign up for a 30-day free trial. It's the Cowboys and Lions, Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern, only on Prime Video. Restrictions apply. See Amazon.com/Amazon Prime for details.
Every who down in Who Newville liked the holidays a ton. But where to get great prices on gifts, they had no idea. None. They searched and they searched for great gifts under $25. Gifts for spouses and friends and even their toddlers. When suddenly one who shouted, Walmart has what you want, knowing they have Lego, Tree Hut, and no prices to flaunt. So they enjoy the holiday season as who's often do. Cheering and shouting, Walmart has incredible gifts. Who knew? Find gifts they'll love under $25 at Walmart.
This episode of How We're the Podcast is sponsored by LiveScoreBet, a principal partner of Sunderland FC. LiveScoreBet is the home of the total betting experience, combining live scores, real-time updates and stats with great odds and offers, all in one slick, easy-to-use betting app. For more information, visit livescorebet.com or download the LiveScoreBet app. And please remember, over 18s only, and please bet responsibly. For more information, go to gambleaware.org. Hello everyone and welcome to How Are the Podcast, sponsored by LiveScoreBet. It's Gav and you join us the morning after the night before as we have convened to chat more about the game at Liverpool, the 1-1 draw for Sunderland at Anfield in what was a really spirited performance, a really proud night for the club and for some of the individuals involved, and one that I think will live long in the memory but could have lived even longer in the memory had one or two things gone our way towards the end of the game. I'm joined today by James Copley from the Sunderland Echo. Morning, mate.
Morning, how you doing?
Yeah, really good, really good. I was just chatting to you there before we hit record. I watched the game in Founders Bar last night, and for anyone listening, I would really recommend you do that next time the club put the tickets up. It was really, really good watching the game in there, and it's something a little bit different. And I'm just sat here this morning. I don't know if you're the same as me. I'm just sat here thinking, could have been even better this, and like I'm buzzing, and we're going to get into it. But it could have been even better if Isidore sticks a chance away, and to be sat here feeling like that after going to Anfield of all places, I'll never get over it. Like this season just feels like a dream at times.
No, it's a strange feeling, isn't it? Because you cannot fault that away performance at all. It's fantastic for a newly promoted side to go away to Anfield, the Premier League champions, and get a point. But as you mentioned, it could have been so much more. But it just shows how far we've come. I mean, last season we lost to Plymouth away, and we were really disappointed with that. And now we're sort of disappointed with a point against Liverpool, the Premier League champions at Anfield. But I mean, just on that Wilson Isidore moment, I think it'll polarise opinion. But for me, he does pretty much everything right.
Yes.
I think it's absolutely world class from Chiesa. I mean, there's an argument that maybe Wilson can try and chip Alisson, or he doesn't tend to finish like that, does he? He tends to go around the keeper. It was reminiscent to me of Middlesbrough, but the difference is you're playing Liverpool and not Middlesbrough, and Chiesa's got round, and Alisson, it's Alisson Becker in goal. So for me, you can't criticise him too heavily for that. I actually think it's world class by Chiesa, and I've seen a couple of people online claim that he bottled it and stuff. He does everything right. He gets it on. He gets it on target. It's just football. It's one of those things. But I mean, the pass from Bruce is absolutely sensational. Pick finesse that. Like, I didn't realise he had that in his locker. That is excellent. That.
Yeah. Oh, we were buzzing when we're seeing the pass, just the pass alone, and then when you realise Isidore's sort of racing through, everything's going through your head, and you're wishing he's going to score. But I agree with you. Actually, I think he done pretty much everything right. And look, if he shot instead of going around the goalkeeper and put it over the bar. You know what I mean? People would have been going, why did you not go around the keeper? He can't win, really.
No.
Unless he scores, he can't win, because there's always going to be someone saying, you should have done this, you should have done that. You're right, though. He goes around the keeper. He actually does really well. And if you look at it was the wider angle of the move when Roofs has got the ball in his hands. It's great play by Isidore. He just gets on his bike. He knows, like, if I go here and the keeper sees us, I'm in. And that's the other part that you probably won't get credit for, actually making the chance. But you're right. Chiesa, unbelievable. I mean, I've seen Liverpool fans absolutely raving about him this morning, and I think he's basically a bit of an unsung hero because
he never
doesn't
plays,
get the
does he?
chances.
And I've always quite liked him.
That's it. I remember him playing brilliantly for Italy in, was it the Euros when they beat England in the final?
I think you're right. He was
Yeah,
a bit of a wonder kid at one point, wasn't he? And then he got a couple of injuries. He was supposed to be the next big thing, wasn't he? I think, though, the point you make about Isidore's is really valid, and it's just so nice, isn't it, to have two in-form strikers, and it's what do you want in a game? Do you want Wilson Isidore to start and run defenders ragged and then Broby come on and batter them towards the end? Or do you want Robbie to batter them for 60 minutes and then Wilson Isidore come on with his pace and affect the game? And I think both ways of doing things are legitimate at the moment, which is really nice to have.
No, I can't complain with the team selection, to be honest. I said on the preview with the lads, I thought we'd go to a back five. I thought Trey Hume would come in. I thought Broby would come in. I didn't see Talbi starting. I thought he might go with Traore, but I didn't hate it. Obviously, because he gets the goal as well, But the team selection, actually, I didn't mind. I think when we sit back and look at the results this season, it's the games against Liverpool, Chelsea, and Arsenal where going with the back five has been really effective. Obviously, we haven't lost any of them games. It's against the perceived lesser opponents. When we played Fulham, for instance, where we went with the back five, and you're looking at it and going, could we not have went with a four there? And then he changes it the next week. But the team selection for me, I don't know if you agree, I had no problem with it whatsoever. I think that was the right setup to go to Anfield and play like that.
Yeah, absolutely no issue at all. And I think it really worked against Liverpool because Hume managed to step into midfield, and I thought he was superb on the day, having been dropped against Bournemouth. I know we talk about starters and finishers, and Lebris would argue that he wasn't dropped. He came on towards the end of the Bournemouth game on 60 minutes, didn't he? But
yeah,
I did wonder whether that would be Trey Hume out of the side for a little while, just with the the quality defenders we've got at the club. But he came in, and I thought he did his job fantastically, and I think he's really announced himself as a Premier League player. He's played in all 13 games. I think he started 12 of them. He stepped up. I mean, this is a lad who was playing for us in League One, So I thought tactically Lebris got it spot on. It's like the Broby Isidore thing. It's good that we've got these two ways of playing. We had it a little bit last season with the 4-3-3 and the 4-4-2. It's obviously altered a little bit, and now it's a 5-4-1 and a 4-3-3. But I think you need that in the Premier League. It's good to have that flexibility. It keeps teams guessing. We're seeing five at the back as well pay dividends in the Premier League. I mean, Leeds have just got back to a back five. I think Farkas started his first ever game against Chelsea with a back five, and it worked for them as well. So it's definitely good to have these little different facets to your play. I felt a little bit sorry for Bertrand Traore, but I can understand the decision as well because away from home at Anfield, for everything he gives you in attack, and I think he's been very, very good recently. If there's one player that's going to maybe lose the ball and on the transition, I think it's Bertrand, to be honest. And a word on Talbi as well. I mean, he's turning into a really, really promising player. What is he, 2021? Little bit of stick when he first arrived. He's come for big money. I think he's going to be very, very good in a year, 2 years' time. I can understand why he was so highly rated on the continent. And it just seems to be improving and improving. And if nothing else, he gives you really, really strong moments as well. I mean, that finish at Chelsea. So look, there's a great deal to be positive about, and I guess we should talk about Lebris as well, because I think my colleague Phil Smith called him the professor at one point, and I think he is. I think he's up there with the best in the Premier League at the moment. The way he's adapted, he's a complete and utter nerd. He's a geek, and I mean that in the best possible sense. He's just obsessed with football. I loved his pre-match where he was like, "Oh yeah, this is one of the best weeks of my life." This, and he means it. He's relishing. He's relishing it, don't you? You know that he's absolutely buzzing to be at Anfield at the Etihad, and you know that he's thinking about that Newcastle game as well. He just loves football. He loves the tactical side of it, and it's really benefiting Sunderland at the moment. And he's becoming, isn't he, really, like, I mean, it's probably a bold call, but Sunderland's most popular and best manager since Peter Reid. I think you can only probably
yeah.
only throw in Roy Keane, really, and Roy Keane never sort of reached these heights with Sunderland, did he? I mean, there's others
No.
who've done all right, like Allardyce and Gus Poyet got us to a final, but for me, it's Regis Labrousse.
Oh, I completely agree. I think he's the best tactician I've ever seen at Sunderland. I'm not ready
Yeah.
to say he's the best manager I've ever seen yet, because obviously time will tell if he proves to be the best manager we've had at Sunderland. But you know, he's just admirable, isn't he? You watch what he does week to week, and there can't be many harder working coaches in football than Regis Labrousse. And it's not just him, by the way; it's a team around him. You know, he's got a really well assembled coaching staff there who are
Yeah.
all in it for the right reasons, all on the same page, totally bought into the way the club's way of working. And to be honest, that's the reason why we have this identity on the pitch. It's because every day in training, we've got good people and we've got good players, and it's just the vibe around the place at the minute's unbelievable. And I'll never take that for granted. Like, because you mentioned that before, you know, playing bloody Plymouth last season and losing. You've got to sometimes pinch yourself and remind yourself of how far we've come in such a short space of time. I mean, picking between, you know, Wilson Isidore and a 20-odd million pound Dutch international striker is like mind blowing. You know, for our entire time as Sunderland fans, we haven't had these options ever. You know, we've had good players from time to time, but we've never gone out and spent that money on a striker who only made his first start in this game.
We didn't have a striker for about 18 months at one point in the championship.
Yes. Yeah.
It's nice to have 2 and 3 if you include Mayenda as well, actually.
Well, that's it. Yeah. I mean, on Brobby, actually, since you mentioned him before, I thought he was really good at just taking the pressure off. I think he's that type of striker, isn't he? He's going to play with his back to goal. He's going to hold it up. Maybe if there's a ball played in the channel where, you know, majority of the time it's in the favour of a defender, he'll make it in his favour because he's that strong and powerful and determined. It probably means he's not going to play many 90 minutes, mind. I don't think you're going to ever really see him play a full 90. Although under Labrousse, that's kind of been the case, hasn't it? His strikers don't really tend to see the full game out. They'll always come off after a point and he'll bring fresh legs on. But just a word on him, I guess, because I think he was really, really effective, even if he didn't, you know, get the chances and the goals and stuff. In the way the game panned out, we needed him up there just to do his job, really, and occupy the defenders, and I think he did it really well.
Yeah, and I think it says something about him that he's quite willing to do that sort of dirty work as well. I mean, if you're Virgil van Dijk and Canate after 60 minutes or whatever it was when he comes off, you're just thinking, oh, God, what was that like? That was... Maybe he's not the best technical player we've ever played against. Maybe he's not the best in terms of pace or anything like that, but just an absolute nightmare. You know, he's standing on your toes. He's roughing you up. He's trying to win fouls. He's trying to get his team up the pitch. He's really physical, isn't he? And he's got an eye for goal as well. I think he's been a really, really good addition, and I think he deserves a great deal of credit as well. I think we've spoken about this on the podcast before, but reading some of the stuff in the Dutch media, he was almost like a bit of a comedy figure. He was getting absolutely bad from pillar to post, and I've read a couple of things over the past couple of days, and now they're starting to eat the words, which is nice to see. He's obviously had a few troubles in Holland as well, well documented troubles. So to see him come in and get his head down and start working, I think is really positive, and it speaks to Sunderland's recruitment as well, in the sense that it's the old Brian Clough thing and Peter Taylor. Like, we do identify players that have maybe lost the way a little bit, or we believe have some value. You know, you can throw it all the way back to Jack Clark and Patrick Robertson. We'll give them a chance. We'll work with them. We'll coach them. We'll improve them as people. We'll give them the opportunity to get their head down and play football. And I think that can be quite powerful for a football club as well. Like, he clearly is enjoying being here, and he's clearly working extremely hard. And Labrousse is getting something out of him. And I think everybody deserves credit. And you're right to mention the coaching stuff as well. I'm still amazed by how well everything has gone tactically just around the club, with so much change and so much flux. I mean, it's a brand new coaching team, really, isn't it? Essentially, Gav, that came in the summer, and everything's managed to mesh so well. It's an extraordinary achievement when you consider how much change had to be implemented after promotion. It's wild, really.
Yeah, yeah, no, it is. It is, and like I say, it's just great that, we're seeing it play out on the pitch every week, and we can go to places like Anfield and have confidence. And I'll be honest with you, before the game, I felt like, there was a potential for this to be a bit of a banana skin for both teams, really. But obviously, I only care about Sunderland, so for my team, in the sense that we were going in there and thinking, "Hey, we can get something here," a little bit like Man U away. And then I
Yeah,
thought, I
yeah.
was thinking, if we're not quite at it, Liverpool are that good individually that we could be 2 or 3 down by half time if you're not careful. So before the game, I was a little concerned about that. But one of the real strengths of this team across the season has been the way that they've rebound from sort of adversity, really. And I think that Man United performance will have lived long in the mind, because they'll have thought against Arsenal as well, we can't make this mistake, we can't make that mistake when we play with a back five against strong teams who won't put us under pressure. All these things, all these experiences have set us up well for games like this. And we have become, we're not becoming, we have become one of the most feared teams in the league from an opposition perspective. Nobody wants to play us. You listen to the pundits and everyone's talking about how Sunderland are just lighting up the division. And when you're low on confidence like Liverpool were going into this game, you don't really want to be playing us. And I would imagine, on Saturday it might be similar when we play Manchester City, that they'll be looking at it, and obviously Guardiola will be relishing the game as he does, but you'd be looking at it and going, I don't really want to be playing these at the minute the way they're playing. So, and I think they're fed into the start of the game. If I'm honest, I think Liverpool, they didn't start very well, and Sunderland did. We were really at it. We were winning all the second balls. We were, we were first to everything. Like, we were when there was crosses going forward, and our defenders were just gobbling them up. I mean, I don't think Isak really touched the ball. And it kind of set the tone, didn't it? The midfield winning all the tackles and stuff. We were working the ball wide, and the wide men were actually being pretty effective with it. I think the full-backs were, in particular Ronaldo, he was unbelievable.
Yeah, he was very
In
good.
the first half especially. But I just think our start to the game was brilliant. And I think, when I talk about a blueprint, that's how you should be starting these games away from home, is with that amount of pace on every decision that you make.
Yeah, I thought the opening 15 minutes were excellent by Sunderland, to be honest. Liverpool did come back into it a little bit, but I think I tweeted around 13 minutes that, like, Sunderland were dominating the ball at Anfield against Liverpool, and it was just it's not strange to see because we know the quality of this team, but it is strange to see because of what we mentioned and where we were last year and 3 and 4 years ago in League One. So I thought the midfield as well probably deserves a little bit of a shout out. Granit Xhaka and Noah Siddiqui were really good. Obviously, have avoided yellow cards as well. So whether they play against Man City, I don't know what they'll do there. I think that's an interesting one to come on to. But I just think there was a couple of times I watched Granit Xhaka and Siddiqui had perhaps gone on a little bit of a wander positionally, and Xhaka's looking over his shoulder to see where Siddiqui is, and he's beckoning him back into position, like, come back here, you're too far away from us." You're shouting over to him. He's like a conductor, isn't he? He's
Yeah.
constantly on the lookout for people who have maybe strayed a little bit, and he's pulling them back into position. It's amazing to watch. I just thought he was central to everything that Sunderland did. Probably didn't catch the eye in terms of stat, assists or anything like that, but he's just so important in the work that Siddiqui gets through as well as is mesmeric. But generally it was a really strong performance. I think the physicality of Dan Ballard, Mukiele as well. I mean, Alderete was sensational at
Oh,
times.
unbelievable,
Some of
yeah.
the some of the touches and the balls that he was pulling out of midair and stuff, and wow. Reinildo, as you mentioned, really physical, up against some really, really good Liverpool players. This is the team that won the league and won the league comfortably last season. I know they've gone through a little bit of a dip, but Florian Wirtz, Alexander Isak, these aren't bad players at all. Salah coming on at half time. And I think the biggest compliment that I can give them is that, bar maybe the last sort of 10, 15 minutes, I didn't really feel that worried in the game.
No.
Liverpool had the odd moment. I think there was a couple of Szoboszlai shots that Roofs dealt with quite well, but I never felt like we were being carved open. So that to have that defensive sort of rigidity is amazing, really. And I mean, we're sixth with 23 points. We're only one off the top four, and I think winning against Bournemouth really sort of set these two games up as not free hits, but there was a lot less pressure on, because if you lose that Bournemouth game after going 2-0 down, I think it would have been 4 without a win or something. And then you're looking at Liverpool and Man City and you're thinking, oh God, we're in bad form. And then Newcastle's the game after that. But we've taken 4 points from Bournemouth and Liverpool. And obviously there'll be pressure on the Man City game in the sense that they want to go there and put their best foot forward. But it's sort of no longer like a must win in terms of points totals in the Premier League. And Sunderland arrived there in good form with a bit of confidence. Obviously, there'll be huge amounts of pressure on the Newcastle game, but I think to take 4 points from the last 2 games has set us up really, really nicely. Coming into the AFCON run of games as well, the Newcastle game and the January fixtures, we're in an amazing position, and I don't think anybody could have predicted it before the season started.
No, absolutely not. No, we've done more than anybody could have wished for. And again, that's why when you come into games, I mean, winning at the weekend set us up lovely for this, because if we hadn't won at the weekend, there might have been a little bit of pressure on the result or the performance to
Yeah.
maybe have to get something, because then you've got Man City, then you've got Newcastle. So that Bournemouth win took a lot of pressure off, and it, to be honest, it showed in the performance. The way we started, we looked like a team who've just completed a 3-2 comeback. Like we were confident, and Liverpool weren't. And despite having hundreds and hundreds of millions of pounds worth of players on the pitch, if you aren't confident, it doesn't count for as much as it should. Yeah, your individual qualities there. There's going to be moments where you come out with something and it comes off. Maybe a long range shot flies into the top corner or something because you've been trying for 70, 80 minutes to break a team down. You can't do it. Those things can happen when you're not playing very well. But it was like, it's polar opposites. I think when you see the reaction that's been going online and in the punditry and stuff, it's all talking about how well Sunderland played and Liverpool didn't. Even though it was a 1-1 draw, and you look at the stats and, Liverpool had far more of the ball. They had, 20 shots, only 4 on target. But, the stats don't tell the full story, actually. I think it was definitely a performance where Sunderland shone more than Liverpool did. And, in that first half, I mean, can't remember, was Hume shot in the first or the second half, which hit the bar?
I think that was the first half, wasn't it? Because
I think so.
Liverpool scored at that end in the second half, didn't they?
That's right. Yeah. So we were teasing them. We were getting closer and closer. He obviously hits the bar. Hume after Allison palms it onto the bar. We also hit the outside of the post, didn't we? I can't remember who took that shot.
Alderete in the second half. Yeah.
Is that yeah. So we were doing that thing where where a confident team just thinks I'm going to be a bit cheeky here and just spank one from distance. It kind of, again, it just warned Liverpool, look, you got to keep us at arm's length here. Don't give us chances, because we're going to take them if you do. And at half time, I mean, I was sat with a bunch of my mates, but one of the lads who came is a friend of one of my mates, and he's a Liverpool fan, and he was just sat there at half time, just brimming with praise for Sunderland. Couldn't believe how well we'd played, and we were all the same. We were sitting there thinking we've been the better team here. We've been the better team. And, and you've got to wonder what the conversations would have been like in the dressing room between the two teams. Because I think you mentioned it before, Salah coming on at half time was a sign that Liverpool weren't happy. I think it was a case like he's got to come on and try and come up with a bit of magic, because it just wasn't working for their wide players at that moment. I think Sunderland probably had them rattled at half time.
Oh, I think you're absolutely right. I have been pleased with the punditry that I've seen afterwards, as well as that we have been given our flowers, which is nice, because when you get a point away to the Premier League champions, a lot of the narrative could be dominated about Liverpool's recent troubles and recent form. But I genuinely believe we made them look bad at times, and I think that's a really big compliment to Sunderland. I know Liverpool
better than some of the punditry before the game. I mean, I heard Danny Murphy on the radio basically just dismiss us yesterday. He was like, well, they're at home against a promoted team, they should be winning. And I was just thinking, have you watched us at all this season?
Jamie Redknapp as well before the game was like, "Oh, AFCON's going to kill them. They're going to sort of slide." I paraphrase a little bit, but they might slide right down the table. And maybe we'll talk about it a little bit. But I think it'll affect us. But am I the only one that doesn't feel like it's going to absolutely ruin our season? For
No, I'm
me,
with you.
like,
Yeah.
there's obviously 3 or 4 starters, isn't there, at any one time? But I'm just not convinced it's the like red herring everybody thinks it's going to be. But yeah, to go back to the game and the way Liverpool approached it, I mean, they are searching for something, aren't they? And they're clearly not right. They're clearly not the team that they were last season. But I honestly think we've taken advantage of that, but we've also made sure that they look like that again, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
this is the team actually that's beaten Real Madrid in the Champions League this season. Obviously, their levels have shifted in a sense that the ceiling's still very high, but perhaps their basement's lowered a little bit, and their worst performances, the levels have dipped up and dipped. But this is still a very good side. We've mentioned the money spent. Virgil van Dijk at the back, Canate, Andrew Robertson was playing. They're a good side. They're at home, the Premier League champions. They've spent a lot of money. Florian Wirtz, I thought, every time I watch him, I don't mind him. Actually, I know there's been a lot of chat about him and potentially being a bit of a waste of money, but I think he's an excellent player. I think he'll come good eventually. They're a team full of really, really good players, and we match them. And it's this thing that Lebreus keeps doing, doesn't it? So he did it away at Chelsea, where we almost have control of the game without traditionally having control of the game in terms of shots and possession. And I think it's a bit of magic that really to do that and to have that sort of mental edge over your opponents, where it's like, well, yeah, you can have the ball and you can have a few shots. You can even get it wide and you can cross it into the box and we'll just have our big lads headed away. But actually, we're going to control the way this game goes in terms of moments and choosing when we want to play, when it suits us. And I think that in the Premier League is worth its weight in gold.
Yeah, well, we'll head off for a quick break. There's a few ads coming up, and then we'll be back to talk about the second half.
This episode is presented by State Farm. Having insurance isn't the same as having State Farm. It's like needing the protection of an offensive guard on the football field, but getting an elementary school crossing guard. Sure, they're both guards, but you can only trust one to keep your quarterback safe when the game is on the line. So don't settle for just any insurance when there's State Farm. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Here's my 30-second story with Guinness. As soon as my sister and I get home for the holidays, we don't even unpack. We head straight to our pub. The bartender already knows our order, Guinness and fries. We laugh all night, catch up with old friends, and walk home with faces sore from smiling. It's one of my favorite nights of the year. That was my 30-second story with Guinness.
Guinness Draft Stout. Please enjoy responsibly. Imported by Diageo Beer Company, USA, New York, New York.
Oh, Hilton stay. Your beds are soft and cozy. No lumpy couch, no stiff futon, no shower line at crack of dawn. Oh, Hilton stay.
When you want holiday comfort you can count on, it matters where you stay. Enjoy comfortable rooms and friendly service when you stay with Hilton instead. Save up to 25% this season when you book with Hilton. Hilton for the stay. Terms apply.
Welcome back to Howie the Podcast, sponsored by LiveScoreBet. And I was just saying there before half time in the game that I thought Sunderland were the better side going into the second half. And, as I said, James, we came out again really strong. I thought it was more of the same from Sunderland. And it wasn't like there was extra special focus on Mo Salah, for instance, because he was on the pitch. I thought you could see Ronaldo was relishing it. The opportunity to go up against one of the best in the world, and it spurred him on. But the team itself, actually, we didn't shift or deviate too much at the start of the second half from what had worked quite well in the first. And I think that's really good, because surely we knew that Liverpool would go in at half time and they would try and make changes to their approach and stuff. And we just thought, well, we're just going to keep doing what's working. And honestly, I think that made all the difference, actually, and we'll get onto the goal and stuff. But it can be important, particularly away from home, can't it, that when you come out after half time, you're not half asleep, because we've been caught like that quite often over the years, haven't we? Where you go in at half time and you're quite happy with the performance, And you come back out second half, and it's like the lads have just been sitting around doing now, and they come back out half asleep, and we get taken advantage of. But it wasn't the case. I didn't think last night. I think actually we came out pretty well.
Yeah, I think we handled Liverpool, I think, for the sort of the first 5-6 minutes of the second half. We were very good, and then Liverpool, as you'd expect, came into it in terms of possession. They had a few shots as well, but I almost felt like we were lulling them into a bit of a false sense of security, and obviously the Talbi goal comes after that. But I mean, yeah, to bring Mo Salah on at half-time and for him not really to have much of an impact, given the quality of play he is, speaks to how good Ronaldo was, how good Sunderland were defensively. We didn't give them much time or space to move, really. We closed them down very well. It was a really strong defensive performance. I think that back line now, whether it's a 5 or a 4, just looks so strong. Ballard is exceptional, Alderete, Mukiele, Ronaldo, Humes in there, Geertruida can play in there. It's good to have all of those options. But yeah, I'm the same as you. I felt quite comfortable in the second half, and sometimes you do wonder, don't you, when you emerge from halftime against a really good side, whether they'll have had a rocket up them. And we know Liverpool can probably play better than that, but again, I don't think Sunderland really allowed them to get going in terms of finding the rhythm. Sunderland didn't really let them play, and I think that's a really good facet of Sunderland's tactical setup with Lebris and the way they all work together, that you don't really let teams get into a groove. They like to disrupt, Broby's at the heart of that. He's not really letting Van Dijk and Canate just pass it around and build out from the back. They're getting in amongst it. I thought Talbi pressed really well, actually. And obviously, when you've got Noah Siddiqui in midfield who can cover that much ground, he gets around the pitch so much. He must be a nightmare to play against, because all of a sudden he's just on your shoulder, and you've got to maybe pass it off back to your central defender when you wanted to advance the ball a little bit. And I thought that's what Sunderland did really well. And I think that's what we want as Sunderland fans, isn't it? We want to win games, of course. And, we want to score goals. We like attacking football. We're not Neanderthals. But if there's one thing you can choose as a Sunderland fan, you want work rate. And I think this team gives it an absolute spades.
Yeah, and that was shown in the goal that we scored. I know you mentioned Broby there, but he came off on 62, and it was about 5 minutes later, I think, when we get the goal. And it's a proper stereotypical Sunderland goal, in the sense that I think we just wanted that little bit more than Liverpool when the ball was in the air and there was loose balls to be won. It's a ball pumped forward. Isidore wins the header, and he's been criticised actually a little bit by some people for not getting involved in games. So it was good to see him involved in the goal and dropping a little bit deep to win the header. He wins the header. He knocks it on. I think it's Talbi tries to head it into the path of somebody else, but it gets knocked back. And if you watch Liverpool, they're all over the place. They're just completely out of shape. Their midfielders are nowhere near what's going on. They're kind of standing off Talbi. They're not expecting him to do anything. And when the ball's fed back out to him, because like I say, we pressed really well, we won the ball back. And that's something their manager will be really disappointed with, I would imagine. The ball falls to Talbi. Nobody closes him down, which is just bizarre to me. Because when anybody's around the edge of your box, somebody should be there trying to close the space down, because you're under threat at that point. And Talbi has a go, and it does take a deflection, but it's the fact that he takes it on, and it goes to something what I said before about the Hume chance and some of the others, where people were just getting shots away. It was obviously a tactic, if you get the chance, hit it. And on that occasion, it paid off, and it ended up in the back of the net. And you can't say we didn't deserve it. I think Liverpool, we caught Liverpool in a moment there where they weren't at it for whatever reason. They weren't focused. They just, maybe we didn't allow them to be. We just seemed to want it a little bit more. It was a pretty scruffy. If you watch the build up of the goal back, it was pretty scruffy to watch, because there's a lot of loose balls that Sunderland win. But from my perspective, I love that. I would rather we scored every goal like that. I love goals where we've had to scrap to win the ball and things like that. So I was chuffed with James Talbi getting his goal. And again, him showing in a big game, in a big moment against a tough opponent, that he's got quality.
Yeah, absolutely. And you talk about the shot being deflected, rightly so, but you have to buy a lottery ticket to win the lottery, don't you? And he does that, I think. Enzo Lefebvre is really good in it. You mentioned sort of Sunderland ratting about and making the most of a bit of chaos, but he does really well the ball sort of pops out into midfield, but he's already on it. He's already there. He reacts quicker than every Liverpool player. He gets the ball to Talbi. The header, as you say, from Wilson in the build-up's really, really good. But I mean, I've just got it on my screen now as a little bit of a refresher, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 7 Liverpool players around that attacking phase from Sunderland, and Sunderland still managed to score. So defensively, it is poor from there. Van Dijk doesn't really know whether he's coming or going, but credit to Sunderland, because I do think they deserve that, as you mentioned. And Talbi obviously came in for a bit of stick when he first joined the club, but as you mentioned, to have these moments under his belt against Chelsea and Liverpool is hugely impressive, and I think it's going to do his confidence the world of good as well. For Lebris to start him as well, he must be absolutely buzzing with that, to have retained his place from the Bournemouth game. As I mentioned earlier, I think he's going to be a really important player for us. He's got so much development and learning to do, but he's definitely got something. And it's rare to find a player, isn't it, that can affect games and who comes up with moments. That's like gold dust, that. But yeah, a really pleasing goal from a Sunderland perspective. And I think I would highlight Enzo Lefebvre's role in it as well. Just over the past couple of games, I think he's been very good. I do feel like he's arrived as a Premier League player. I just think with a full pre-season, he's playing a little bit more centrally now. I think we're really, really going to see the best of him. Last season he came in January, which was always tough. He then had an injury. He was playing with worse players in the Championship, and he still managed to be absolutely mesmeric at times. If we don't sign him, we don't get promoted. I think he had a hand in 3 of the 4 playoff goals, didn't he? I just think he's a special, special footballer, and we're gonna start seeing him develop and get better and better. And for me, that's very exciting. I was saying on the Raw podcast that we do for the Echo, but he's like the game-changing signing before the game-changing signing, because everybody talks about Granit Xhaka and his influence, and rightly so. But it was almost Enzo Lefebvre that was the first signing of that ilk, because when we signed him in the Championship, everybody sat back and just went, "Wow, how have we managed that?" And that was the moment for me in the second tier where I was like, "Right, we're going for this," and I think there's a good chance that we could go up, and so it proved to be. So yeah, big love for Enzo Lefebvre, because I just think he's class.
Oh, I absolutely love him. I think he's really underrated as a player. Not by Sunderland fans. We all know how good he is. But I think if anybody paid more than a cursory bit of attention towards Sunderland in the results and the performances, they would just see how important he is, because he's so flexible in possession, out of possession. You probably look at him and you see him, and he's quite small and diminutive, and he wears gloves and stuff. I think I actually heard, because he got a bit of attention on Match of the Day at the weekend after Bournemouth, because he was probably man of the match against Bournemouth.
And I know exactly what you're going to say. They can't watch him regularly for what they were saying about him.
Yeah, because they were talking about him as if he's like a jinky winger, like like a trickster, which he's capable of, but that's not the player he is. And I think you can look at him and see size and see, this little skinny lad like with gloves on, and you probably think he's a bit of a maverick player. He couldn't be anything further from the truth. He plays like Granit Xhaka, actually. He's quite similar off the ball to Xhaka, so disciplined out of possession. And I can always remember when he signed for us, somebody had dug out like a big feature in the French media from when from when he signed for Roma, and it was talking about how his relationship with Regis Lebris was key, and how at Lorient, Lebris he was like a bit of a Swiss Army knife. So if he needed a number 6, he would play in the 6th position. If he needed an 8, he'd play in the 8th position. If he needed a 10, he'd play in the 10th position. If he needed a wing back, he would play there. He could do anything he was asked of by Lebris, and that relationship was key. And that's always stuck in my mind when I think about Enzo Lefebvre, because you can see his skills developing as we go on, but he's now surrounded by better players as well. So he's not, with no disrespect to the lads who've got us promoted who we played with last season, he's playing with a world-class midfielder in Xhaka, a potential world-class midfielder in Siddiqui. The defence behind them are just so much better than what we had last season for obvious reasons. So it's no slight on the lads we had last season, but you put a really quality footballer in a team with other quality footballers, you're going to see a better version of them, aren't you? And he's just, with every passing game, he's getting better and better and better. And as you kind of alluded to before, it's remarkable that we managed to get a player of his quality in the Championship. I would go as far to say as we've probably never had a better player in the Championship ever, and that's going all the way back. Like, I can't think of anybody as good as him over the years. Who we've
I guess the only ones would be like Phillips and Quinn, wouldn't they?
Yeah, possibly.
Did Lee Clark sign for us in the Championship?
He did, yeah. But
he's probably one you'd look at. But like in terms of technical ability, I think the game's moved on since then. To be honest,
you could see Liffey playing for anybody, though. That's kind of my point here. Is like you know, if he played for Liverpool, you wouldn't be shocked, would you? Because he's that good. No. You know, I'm not saying it's going to happen or anything, but a couple of good years with Sunderland, maybe a couple of high finishes in the Premier League, and you know, possibly even playing in Europe. God, that would be unbelievable. But like 2 really strong years with Sunderland and carrying on playing the way he's playing, he's going to get links to big clubs, and that's more of a testament to how good he is. Really, is that you wouldn't be surprised to see him playing for like a European elite side eventually if he carries on the trajectory he's going on. But for me, sometimes, and this has already kind of been shown in his career, you know, sometimes the grass isn't always greener, and he's obviously that relationship he has with Regis Lebris is really important to how he plays. So you know, we're kind of veering off here, and I'm not going to go too much more on sort of Lafay's future, but you get me point. I think there's a real reason why he's playing so well, and it's that relationship with the manager. And hey, long may it continue. I love watching him. He's one of my favourite players we've had over the years. I love him. I love him a bit.
I completely agree, and I think what we love about him as well as the moments that he gives us, the assists, the corners, the passing. I think it's his work rate as well. I think it's to have that in a player, because that was what puzzled me with the match of the day analysis after Bournemouth, is that, as you say, that they made out like he never tracks back and he's just a bit of a maverick floating around, making his passes. He's not that at all. He is not that player. He gets stuck in, he wins the ball back, and he understands his value to the team in terms of his defensive work, and that he has to track back. And he does that for Lebris, and I think it's nice to see that buy-in from such talented players, isn't it? Because for me, that's what's marking all of these players out, and is what is the separator. Having seen many teams, Sunderland teams, who have had talent over the years, but haven't worked as hard as they should have and fulfilled the potential. They've been out drinking and been doing this and that. You just know this group don't do this, and that's what separates them. They've all got talent. They're all internationals. We've had talent and we've had internationals before at the club, but this lot really work for each other. They're professional. They really believe in it, and they're quite happy to do the defensive work. There's nobody too proud in that team to go, well, I don't have to run back. I mean, that's what you have to do in the Premier League. You need that buy-in, and Lafay's, you know, chief amongst them. He's a mesmeric player, and I think it's nice over the past couple of games where we've started to talk about him again, because we've had the £150 million summer, all of the stories, Florent Gasolfi coming in, Granit Xhaka coming in, and it was almost like, you know, the Joe Bellingham sale as well, and like Lafay sort of got forgotten about a little bit, understandably so, because so much was going on. Then Sunderland started the season's been absolutely fantastic, so the conversation's been centred around that. But actually, it's like he's a really excellent player, and we should probably talk about it because he is that good.
Yeah, well, I say we could go right the way through the team and just praise everybody. I think we basically have, in fairness, like, but yeah, we've got to come on to a slight negative, I guess, because it was in the 81st minute. I think it was just after Lafay had gone off. Actually, we'd made, I think it was just that was the only change, really, wasn't it? After the goal, the Lafay for Geertruida one, but you could totally understand it. It was to try and sort of solidify the middle of the pitch. Enzo's played a lot of football recently, so get some fresh legs on there. But it was practically a minute later, and it was no bearing on the sub, by the way, of this. But it's gone down as an own goal off Nordi Mukiele because the shot was flying wide, which is a gutter, isn't it? Because, you know, you freaking hell, I wish it had just gone flying wide. But it's actually really good play by Florian Wirtz. Like, I can't really criticise our defenders. They're doing their job. They're trying to block the shot or a route through for him. But he's just got quick feet, and he gets through and he pokes a shot away. It's flying wide, but because it deflects off Mukiele, it goes in the back of the net, and it's ones each. And I've got to say, I didn't feel like Liverpool deserved it. Maybe that's me with my red and white tinted specs on. They were decent at times, but I never, as you said before, I never felt under threat. But they get that goal to make it ones each. And naturally, after that, you feel disappointed. You're like, oh, but still, a point at Anfield isn't bad. And we still had time to get another goal if we wanted. So it didn't take us, you can talk about the goal here, but it didn't take us very long to recover from it either, I didn't think. And yeah, it was a gutter though, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a bit of a gut punch. As I say, it's a marker of how far this team have come that we were, frustrated with that and ultimately getting a point. But a bit of context, I mean, Sunderland won away at Anfield in 1981 and 1983, and they haven't done it since, which is long before I was born. So we were like on the cusp of something quite special. Just in terms of the goal, though, Alderete gets it on in the left back position. He smashes it down the line, and Talbi has the chance to get it under control and get it away, but Curtis Jones just nips in front of him. Talbi tries to stay with him, but I just think that's the action that leads to the goal. And I'm not criticising Talbi because I think that can happen on a football pitch. It's not a howler by any means, but perhaps he just needs to be a little bit smarter in that moment. Curtis Jones still has a lot to do. He still runs quite far. He gets the ball to Florian Wirtz. And Sunderland have men around him, to be fair, but it's the little shift onto his left foot, which sort of does Ballard. And I think it's a real bit of quality that you can't really get too upset about. A bit unlucky though that the shot is going wide and it's deflected in, but I just feel like it's one of those that, as I said, there's a couple of things you can pick out, but no real howlers. And yes, it's frustrating, but I can sort of have no real complaints with the desire, the defending, the attitude, and the work rate. Yeah, these things happen in football, don't they? We saw with our goal with the Talbi deflected shot. Sometimes you can get a little bit unlucky, and I think that happened to Sunderland. But to be fair, the way they managed the game after that, I thought was good. With a few hairy moments here and there as Liverpool really pushed for the winner. But you mentioned the sub Gertrude coming on. I thought after Liverpool scored, he was really good in terms of recycling the ball.
I'm glad you said that because I thought he was unbelievable.
Yeah, I thought he really showed his class. And as you said, you can't really put the goal down to that substitution at all. So I think even in the adversity that Sunderland suffered in that game, I think there's a few positives as well, which is an incredible thing to say.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think particularly you've got to remember you're playing Liverpool at Anfield, so they get a goal in the 80th minute. Naturally, you're thinking, right, they're going to come at us. The crowd's going to be up, and what happened wasn't quite that. I think it felt like we'd almost planned for it. We'd actually spent quite a lot of the game at 0-0, so the game plan didn't change too much, really. I actually think again, you're totally right. The lads and the manager deserve a lot of credit for the way we managed it out from that point. And Liverpool did try and throw on a few players to change the game, and you could argue it worked because one of those players was Chiesa, who had a hand in that opportunity at the end for Wilson Isidore. But we were decent still for the rest of the game, and I think we were quite content with coming away with a point, and that showed in the way we set up. We weren't panicking. We weren't, we didn't have players flying out of position to try and get forward and get another goal. It wasn't haphazard. There was no panic in us whatsoever. We just got on with it. And yeah, we've kind of already talked about it, but to come back to it again, that chance at the end for Wilson Isidore, it's in the dying moments of the game, isn't it? And it's an unbelievable bit of quality from Roof's side. That pass was just beautiful. And yeah, like I said, we've already kind of talked about it, but I'm a little bit gutted for Wilson, and it is what it is. But one thing I did want to touch on before we kind of wrap up was Luke O'Nien coming on for his Premier League debut. He got 8 minutes in total. He came on in the 91st, and the game ended on 99, so he had 8 minutes. But the reception from the fans when he was waiting to come on, the look on his face, he was beaming. I mean, to me, that's the best moment of the day. It wasn't the goal, it wasn't the point. It was Luke getting to realise his dream in front of us. A lad who's been with us for what?
Eight seasons, now? I think. This must be his 8th season, something like that, or 7th season.
I hope he kind of gets the credit for that in the sort of the reaction today from the national media and stuff, because he's been on that journey with us, and you can probably imagine what he's been like in training for the last 4 or 5 months, just waiting for an opportunity to come on. Like, he'll have been absolutely fizzing, and he'll have made sure he was ready for this. And to be fair to him, he comes on the left of midfield pretty much to deal with Salah. Salah. And I thought he'd done really well. I thought he did well. And I knew he would, because he's the most dependable player we've had over the last decade. So, I was just buzzing for Luke. I'm sure you were as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I had no issue with him coming on. I mean, he's now played in the Premier League, Championship, League One, FA Cup, EFL Cup, and EFL Trophy for Sunderland. And if you dig back into his career as well, he's obviously got the 2 promotions with us, but he won promotion with Wycombe Wanderers from League Two, and he played for the non-league. He played in non-league with a side called Weldstone. And I've actually spoke to their manager, a man called Gordon Bartlett, who's a bit of a non-league legend. I've spoken to other players and people around the club when he was there, and they all just say the same thing, that in terms of his technical ability, he wasn't amazing, but what sort of set him apart was his work rate, and I think that's sort of proven to be, and he's made a career out of that. Again, just to hark back to the good old days of when we were absolutely terrible, but how many players came to Sunderland and tossed it off, who probably had like double, triple, quadruple the raw ability and technical nous of Luke O'Nien, but they didn't make players out of themselves. But he's made a player out of himself through absolute sheer force of will, dedication. 313 appearances for us now. He's a modern day. I wrote this after Wembley, but I think he's a modern day club legend in what he's achieved. I think the things he had to come back from early on in his Sunderland career. I mean, he couldn't get in the team in League One. Let's not forget. He couldn't get in the team, and he's played in pretty much every position for us, hasn't he? Centre midfield. I've seen him play off the striker once or twice in games. Left back, right back, centre back. He's absolutely phenomenal. Puts his body on the line for the club. It's probably one of the best signings ever, really, and I'm delighted for him as a man and as a person. I think he thoroughly deserves it, and a very important character at the Academy of Light as well. Currently, I think obviously Granit Xhaka has been getting a lot of the plaudits, the coaching staff, Regis Lebris, of course. These are all really important people, but I think Luke O'Nien in the background. I was actually speaking to Graham Murdy about him. Because Luke O'Nien had his shoulder injury, didn't he, after Wembley, and it's taken him a little bit of time to get back. And he was playing for the under-21s in the Premier League International Cup, which is a European competition. Luke O'Nien played centre-back. And I asked Graham Murdy about him after the game and his influence on the team. And he said, well, yeah, he's just been amazing, really ridiculous. He's off his own back. He's coming in to do the debrief with the youth team, to offer like his expertise and to analyse the game, like an under-21 game that he's played. And I think that's just a marker of what he's like as a bloke. He loves it. He loves Sunderland, but there's no pretense with him either. He's quite happy to offer his expertise. And I've written about this quite a lot. And that's the sort of culture that's been permeating through the club. And I think we'll not go into specifics, but when he joined, the type of dressing room that Sunderland had at the time didn't really appreciate him in terms of how busy that he was. I don't think he was always popular with managers, but I don't think he was very popular with some of the senior professionals we had at the time, because the culture of the club was just not the same as it is now. But he's helped get the club back to where it should and needs to be, and sort of help drag it into an age of professionalism as well. So I think he deserves immense amounts of credit, and I could talk about him all day. Just an icon, really. I think we're maybe we'll appreciate him a little bit more when he's not here or when he retires. But I just think, in terms of his impact and his influence, I can't think of many players who've had that much sway on Sunderland over such a long period of time. And I think if you're a kid now, like obviously we're 31, Gav, or 30, whatever we are, and like if you're if you're
a little bit older than 31, but I'll take it. 31's fine.
Well, I'm 31, so we'll stick on that. But if you're a kid, like I don't know, if you're like 10, it's from the age of like 8 to 15 or something like that, like Luke O'Nien's like your Sunderland hero. Like my first Sunderland hero was like Julio Arger or Kevin Phillips or Niall Quinn. The generation before it was Gates and Gabbiadini and all those players. Like, it's Luke O'Nien for a lot of the young lads, and you can understand why, because he's just had a monumental impact on Sunderland, and he deserves credit. He deserves his flowers.
Yeah, he's. I'm like you. I could sit and talk about him all day. He is my Sunderland hero. I've said it before. He's my favourite player I've ever watched. And I've seen some brilliant players at Sunderland, but I really appreciate the journey he's been on with Sunderland. And this wasn't let's just give Luke a run out. We were drawn 1-1 at Anfield. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
With a bit of jeopardy on the line, really, because we could have lost the game. He went on there to do a very specific job, knowing Mo Salah, as good as he is, he never goes down the outside, does he? He doesn't use his right foot very often. So putting a right-footed defensive player on him for 10 minutes or so wasn't a bad idea. And I think sometimes we've got it, and this has been something which has followed Luke quite a bit through his Sunderland career. He's sometimes treated like a little bit different. He's very much earned the opportunity and the right to play, and he deserves to be on the pitch as much as anybody does. So like, you shouldn't really be surprised when he comes on and does what he does. But yeah, I thought he showed us up, and he got involved, and that's exactly what he needed to do, really, in those final moments. And just buzzing to see him out there. And I hope it's not going to be the last time for a while. Hopefully now, when the moments call for it, we'll see him on the pitch doing just that again. But yeah, I just thought that was a real nice sort of way to end chatting about the game, to be honest, because I'm buzzing for him. I'm buzzing about the point. I'm buzzing about the result. Buzzing about the performance from the lads. I think, there's very little to pick at, and we've got to be really, really proud of the team. But more than anything, I'm just really buzzing for him that he was on the pitch at the end of the game there at Anfield. And yeah, it was. But overall, it was really a fantastic result, wasn't it? I mean, we'll look at the table. You said before, didn't you, that we're sixth in the table, and it's tight. You look at it, and we are.
Oh yeah, very tight.
We're level on points with Palace above us on 23. They've got a better goal difference. We're one behind Chelsea, who are on 24. Then you've got Villa in third, who are on 27. And they've kind of come out of nowhere, by the way. I didn't realise they were in such good form. But yeah, Villa are up in third place. But then below us, you've got Brighton on 22, Liverpool on 22, Man U on 21, Everton on 21. So they're kind of the teams who can catch us at the weekend. And then just below them, in the rung below, you've got Tottenham on 19, the Mags on 19, Brentford on 19, Bournemouth on 19. Like that, from Chelsea in 4th down to Bournemouth in 14th, there's no in it. It's like 5 points. And I'm not really too bothered about that. It doesn't seem to be bothering us, that, because we're just cracking on. But it does, I suppose what it does do, it highlights the need to just keep on picking up these points, doesn't it? Like, we've got 4 points from the last 2 games. That would, I actually said before this little run of games, including Man City, I'd have been over the moon with 4 points. We've got 4 points.
Oh, absolutely.
So we can now go into that Man City game without pressure. Like, we've got to really build on the last 2 performances. We were brilliant against Bournemouth. Probably put in one of the all-time great stadium-light performances, in my opinion, to come from 2-0 down to win 3-2, and then to go to Anfield and be leading there until the last 10 minutes. And probably you could argue we should have won because of the chance we had at the end. That's going to give these players so much confidence going to Man City. And I just can't wait to see Regis Lebris pit himself against the greatest of all time.
Yeah, and you know what? We might go up there at the Etihad, we might lose that game, but it won't be for a lack of trying, and it won't be for a lack of tactical. Now, we see Man City have some really good players, but if we're looking at it in a positive light, which we should do given what we've experienced this season, Man City can ship goals. I mean, the Leeds United staged a comeback there last weekend, didn't they? They went from 2-0 up Man City to 2-2, and then they eventually won 3-2. They've got quality all over the pitch, but they're not quite the side they were a couple of years ago. Similar to Liverpool in that sense, they're perhaps going through a little bit of a transitionary period. If Sunderland turn up and produce another really committed tactical display, maybe get a little bit of luck on the side as well. Who knows? And I think that is the key that you mentioned, and I mentioned earlier. There's just no pressure on this game. You arrive having taken 4 points. That picture could have looked very, very different, couldn't it? If we'd have lost against Bournemouth and we had lost against Liverpool, that would have been like, I think it would have been 4 or 5 or 6 games without a win. suddenly those points that you won against Everton and Arsenal wouldn't have looked as good. And the narrative would have completely shifted. Gav, it would have been about, well, the wheels are going to come off. Sunderland have had the day in the Premier League, and now it's going to be a struggle for them to return into their natural level, or the level that we all thought they were going to be at. But that hasn't happened, and I think that is brilliant in the context of this game. What do you think on the booking situation now, though? Because obviously you've got Xhaka and Siddiqui. Will they play against Man City, do you reckon?
I think they will. I don't think Lebris gets as emotional about these things as we do. To us, it's like 3 games ago we were saying, well, they're going to have to take some tactical bookings here because we need them for the Mags game. He does not care about Newcastle yet, trust us. He won't think about Newcastle till after we've played Man City. He'll be thinking solely about that game and winning. And to be honest, this is something which has really been a hallmark of Lebris, but he removes emotion from most of his thinking, and he just thinks with logic. And he trusts Granit Xhaka and he trusts Noah Siddiqui. He will trust them both to be okay. And I know that's really hard for us to accept as fans. I'm like everybody else. I'm absolutely shitting myself that we lose Xhaka for the derby. and like in years gone by, that would have been so typical of Sunderland. But I think he just trusts these lads to keep themselves right. And
I think in terms of Xhaka as well, that the player we know he is, the man we know he is, I don't think it's probably even entered his mind. He's probably aware, being on 4 yellow cards, but I think he's a bit like Lebris in the sense that I don't know about Noah Siddiqui with him being a bit younger and stuff and the lack of experience, but he's managed it well as well, to be fair. But I do wonder if it's even a factor in Xhaka's thinking. I reckon he just goes about his business. All of these players think in the moment, don't they? All these top-level sportsmen, top-level managers, all they're obsessed about is the moment and the here and the now and the preparation, isn't it? They're not. I think you're right. I don't think they're thinking about the Newcastle game yet, which is completely bizarre to us because it's all we've thought about since the fixtures got released, isn't it? Really, let's be honest. But I think it'll be interesting to see what Lebris does against Man City. Actually, I think tactically he has to go 5 at the back again. But in terms of that midfield, I mean, it's hard, isn't it? Because to take both of them out, I mean, you'd really have your chances in that game, wouldn't you?
Yeah, well, actually, Geertruida came on and did well in there, and I wouldn't be against them playing. I don't think it would be, if he takes out Siddiqui or I don't think he's going to take out Xhaka, but if he takes out Siddiqui and plays Geertruida in there and makes sure that Siddiqui's rested, 3 games in a week, so, and he's took a few knocks, hasn't he, as well, Siddiqui? So, like, he might bring him out, but I don't think he worries about their discipline necessarily. I think he trusts them, doesn't he? Well, hey, I could be wrong. He could play Daniel and Geertruida on Saturday. I just don't see it happening. I don't see it whatsoever.
It would be a big ask for poor Dan to come in against Man City away, wouldn't it?
Looking forward to Saturday, and we'll see what happens. Look, if we don't win, we don't win. It is what it is. But we've been really happy with the last 2 performances, and you wouldn't bet against Sunderland doing the same again and getting a really good result at the Etihad. And we're going to preview the game leading up to it here on How Are the Podcast and on rotoreport.sbnation.com. So tomorrow we've got Ned Manua on the pod chatting to us, catching up on Sunderland and Man City, which should be fun. And also the match day preview, which will be, of course, dropping on match day. So make sure you join us back for that. What you've got coming up this weekend, James, in terms of coverage from the Echo?
So Phil's going to the game. I'm not. I'm still in that sort of like that baby paradox. So George is like, I think it's 12 or 13 weeks. So I haven't actually been away yet this season. I'm looking forward to getting back onto it. But at the moment, he's just very young. So I'm staying home. But we'll have all press conference coverage, all the coverage from the Etihad. Phil will have us on the whistle. We'll have podcasts, all of that sort of stuff. I'm looking forward to that Ned Manua chat actually, because he speaks excellently. He's a really, really good pundit. And I wish he'd stayed. I really wish he'd stayed with us because I think he could have been a good player. But I mean, Sunderland Echo website will have all sorts, to be honest, and we're across socials and all that good stuff as well.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for joining us, mate. It's been a pleasure. Thank you to the listeners, of course, for joining us here. And if you're not already subscribed, what you're playing at, get yourself subscribed to How Are the Podcast. We are here every single day, sometimes twice a day, depending on when the games are. It's a busy week this week. We've got pods flying out left, right, and centre. So get subscribed. Thanks to everyone, by the way, on social media who's been tagging us in their Spotify wrapped screenshots. And I mean, I must have had about 200 yesterday. So it shows that people actually do listen to this, which is nice. And thank you very much for that. Like I say, we've got loads coming up around the game, so make sure that you join us before and after here on Howie the Podcast and Rotor Report. We'll see you later.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.